This video is made for adult collectors because yesterday I randomly sliced my finger and I don't know how I did that, and it's like a really thin slice, so it stings every time I bump something. So recently leader class figures have been, you know, stuff like this or stuff like this or stuff like this, you know, a little bit taller than Voyagers and, you know, beefier plastic, denser engineering, and a lot more like stuff and paint and all that. And then we have this guy who's enormous. Make more enormous leaders, please. One of the primes I was looking forward to the most, and I was also the most curious about, because there were a couple of designs they could have chosen from, and I'm glad they went for the massive brute over the Robo Loki design. And here he is, this massive ass figure. Like, it is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting like the Fallen levels of big, but this idiot's bigger than the Fallen. It feels like an old Studio Series leader, like Grimlock and Blackout, and yeah, okay, that wasn't very funny. I'm a huge fan of the like seaweed colors. That's like the first thing that popped into my head was I see these colors. You know the monster from that movie Underwater? Well, Cthulhu. It looks like that. Or like this image of the big fin squid. Creepy underwater creature. It is the vibe it gives off. I love all the cabling around the torso, crotch, and thighs, though I wish they painted the ones on the shins. They left it unpainted and the details get lost in that sea of green, and that's a little annoying. He's all spikes and horns. The back horns are enormous and they like to fall off every once in a while. The pegs on there could have been a bit more secure. If they had like a clip or something, that would have been nice. But they come off so they can peg into the chair that came with 86 Starscream. The only issue is this isn't the 86 Starscream chair. This is the Blockies one, so it doesn't have the same peg layout, but it can do that on the Hasbro chair. He also has spikes on his shoulder blades behind his head and then all over his shoulder pads, and all of those bits are made of a soft plastic. I assume it's a safety thing, obviously, but it does mean that the shoulder pads like to come off every once in a while. They aren't packed separately, but they are on 5mm pegs. I don't know why they are, but it means you can move them to other figures, I guess. I don't know. What's funny though is that all of these spikes and things on the upper body are safetied, but then the ones on the lower body are just palm and they're sharp. That's an interesting choice. I love how mean he looks. The head sculpt is just on point for me for something that's like this. It feels like G-axis. His hands are articulated of sorts, which is great. The fingers can clamp open and close, but they also made the thumb movable. It's a bit inconsequential. It doesn't do anything, but I'm glad it's there. I do like the very Unicron-esque lower leg design. The feet and lower legs really remind me of that Beast Wars Neo prototype Unicron. I knew it looked familiar. I wasn't able to like remember until I was writing this. Even the horns fit the bill. I'm also glad they gave him the wrist gun thing. You can flip his hand around and then rotate the wrist and bam, red gun. You can also peg the actual gun into the other gun on his arm. The handgun is cool, if a bit boxy. He has his 3 darts which can come off and then get swallowed by someone or lost, or I don't know. This thing does pack quite a punch with its articulation. You'd think a big guy like this would struggle, but there is a lot going on here. Is it all usable though? That's a different question. Now, while this thing does have quite a lot of articulation going on, I mean, it's a leader class toy. It's a wee bit awkward to get him to look good just because of how he's shaped. And one of those things I want to talk about right off the bat is the arms. The shoulders are like really, really close to the body and close to the head. Now, that technically wouldn't be that much of an issue, right? But a lot of Transformers, I mean, this guy might be a little too wide for this example, but like you see how far apart the shoulders are? If you look at Power Glide here, you see how far apart the shoulders are, and that looks a bit more natural than this, but it looks a bit more natural. Here, they seem really, really close to the torsos, and they're a little loose here, so like it can be a wee bit weird to get him to look like natural, I guess, when he's standing still. Not to mention the ankles are strange, but I'll get to that in a second. So the head is on a ball joint, and it's in this contraption, but this contraption's not attached to it, thankfully. So the head can rotate. He does have like the babyest amounts of, like, it's not even worth trying that tilt. He can look up that far, he can look down that far. As you can see, the top of the head shifts because this is actually a separate piece. This is the rubbery part of the head. The rest of the head is not rubber. It's like just a regular ABS. The shoulder pads there on hinges, they can go up. These shoulders, they can do a full 360, but the shoulder pad and the horns do get in the way of that. The shoulders can go out that far. You do have bicep rotation, a single jointed elbow that bends a teeny bit over 90 degrees. Then you have wrist rotation, and then like the fingers and thumb, they can move. You do also get wrist tilt because of the gun gimmick. You get wrist tilt on this side, but because it's essentially the same piece here without the gun, you get the same amount of wrist tilt on both sides, which I think is cool. He does have a waist joint. The hip skirts, they can move out of the way. The hips can go forward that far. They can go back that far. He can do a full split, so you do have a thigh rotation, and they did screw all of this in, so I like that. He does have double jointed knees, but they are weird. They bend here, they take a lot more effort to bend here. So you get this bend, right, which bends about 90 before it starts colliding with the like Unicron-esque leg bit. And then if you really try, you can get the top part to bend, then the bottom part to bend, and now you have a double joint. I don't know why this one latches in and this one doesn't, but it does that. And then the ankles, as I said, they're a bit strange because they want to constantly stay straight. And like if you want to tilt them out this much, they tend, when you put them down, to pop back into straight. They only start staying when you go this far because they're like detented weird. They have like a click in place, like a thoop, and it's just kind of strange. Also, I don't know how well you can see that, but one of my figure's legs, this one, is slightly higher than the other one. You can tell down here a bit more. It's ever so slightly higher than the other, and that's strange. I don't even know how that happens, but that's a bit weird. The backpack, this can shift forward and back. You gotta hold it in, but the horns can swivel. If you don't hold it in and you start swiveling the horns, it will just pop off because it's two 5mm pegs. He is pretty articulated. It's just some of it is awkward and strange. It's partially due to him just being a bulky brute, but also just because of how things are shaped on his body, like how these are shaped and how the shoulders are put in. And this comes off. This doesn't come off that often. Like if I move the shoulder pad up, the arms moving around, blah blah blah, put the shoulder pad back down, it's fine, right? But every once in a while, if you're not careful, you could just like knock it right off. I am very happy with this thing. I do have my nitpicks with the robot, but it's great. It doesn't even look like a transformer. It's so creepy looking. The conversion the first time I got this was a lot more complex than I was expecting. It turns into a giant flying like rotten tomato, but the way it gets there is super interesting. Transforming this for the first time is like transforming Megatronus for the first time. You're like, oh, this looks like it should be easy, and then you get into the nitty gritty and you're like, what? His chest has come out, was flipping around, what is going on? That's what this did to me at first. I was like, whoa, most of the time through the process, because there's a lot of very interesting stuff, especially the way these work. So the first thing we're gonna do is rotate the hands so that the palms are facing forward. Then you want to take the head section here, you want to pull the head forward, pull this back section back, fold the head in, and then you're going to close this door. But before we do that, I want to talk about the head here. Getting this out is a pain in the ass. So they gave you this little notch like right there under the chin. So you have to push the head back a bit, get your fingernail under there, and then very slowly pull it out. If you try to flick it out, you're either going to break your nail off or it's not going to move. You got to slowly pull it out. You don't want to pull it by the rubber because you could rip that. But that's how you get the head out. It's kind of annoying. So you fold the head in and you close this section up. You take these horn pieces and you rotate them together all the way up, and then you fold this piece down. Now we're going to come back here and fold this section forward, and then you want to take the shoulder pads and just bring them up a little bit, pull the arms forward. They're going to unclip, and then bring this entire chest piece up. Then you fold the wrists in, or the arms in, and then you rotate the bicep swivel and then peg the arm, this peg that goes underneath the chest. Again, fold this up, fold this around, and peg this in, and that's the arms ready to go. Then you want to take the waist and you want to rotate it 180 degrees and open up the side pieces here. Now we're going to work on the legs. So you peg the legs together, you fold the heels. You don't fold them up all the way. You have to fold them up all the way. This is how they're packaged, and you have to do this for chair when he sits in the chair, but you want to take them and leave them flat like this. And you fold the feet down. Then you take these pieces and you pull them back, and then you just swivel them out and around like that. Then you want to unclip the torso section from here and bring this back, and then fold the legs all the way forward, getting these panels out of the way, and it will just sit. It doesn't peg in, it just sits, but it doesn't have to peg in, because now you bring in the gun, and I love how this is integrated. So you fold this up, and there are two tabs on either side of the gray parts out of focus right here that'll go into the red sections in the feet. So you come here and you peg them in to what once was the heels. I can't see what I'm doing, there's a camera in front of my face. And then this little bit right here is going to help keep all of this together. So you bring this down, it's going to peg into here, and then you bring this down and it's going to peg all together like that. Then you fold these panels down, fold down these shoulder pads, you bring these bits down, and they're going to peg into the air escape holes on the thigh swivels. Then you want to rotate the horns so that they're facing down a bit like that. And there you have the moldy potato. This is an object, its shape, it exists, it looks like that. That looks like one of the Dark of the Moon motherships. Wait a minute, it's just a giant potato with horns, but I like it. It's so alien. I've seen people call this like an avocado, and I kind of see that too because of the texturing on it up close. And it's massive in universe if this tiny speck is the cockpit section. I also love how the gun and the darts become integral to the alt mode, and they have a place to go and it blends in. It's not just shoved on top. It's very tightly packed and shrinks down to this size. I say shrinks down, but it's still pretty large alt mode, and it's hefty too. All of the mass is now not concentrated into a small area, so it feels more weighty even without the weight itself changing, if that makes any sense. I might just be yapping out of my ass. I love the engine detail at the back, and the cabling detail sneaks its way into here as well. The texturing on top, it looks very crustacean, and again, murky, underwater-like. It looks like a creature you'd find 1,500 meters below. Big fin squid. If you can't tell, I just watched this entire video on the big fin squid, and it was really interesting, and now it's just stuck in my head. I genuinely like this a lot. There are a couple of nitpicky things like the backpack and the shoulder pads, but everything else, I love this. And this is also really fitting of the leader class name and price point. It's large, complex, feels pretty good in hand, and is well articulated. This is something most leader class figures I think need to strive to be. It's such a cool thing. I just wish them shoulder pads would stay on. But that's been my look at Age of the Primes Liege Maximo, the last of the 13 primes to release. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.